This that jumpin', yeah. This that jumpin', start like 23. This that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. This that jumpin', shoot my shot, then beat. This that jumpin', right around song of my trees. This that jumpin', start like 23. This that jumpin', 2-4 like Kobe. This that jumpin', shoot my shot, then beat. This that jumpin', right around smoke of my dreams. I be ballin' in music like Kobe. I'm the greatest to ever do it, they don't know it.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back right here on USN's premier Chicago sports take show, Turtles Take. As always, I am Tarbill. To my left, that way, nope. Every time I mess it up is my guy, Vince Turtle. How we doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm great. I mean, how could you not be?
Absolutely, man. The Bears made some big splash moves over the last couple days here. Obviously, it started out with moving Robert Quinn. Then we get the Roquan news yesterday. And then today it comes through that the Bears make the splash move. I consider it a splash move at wide receiver for Chase Claypool. And man, we have some things to look forward to with this team. But before we get into it, I just got to say, man, as ugly as the Bears' loss last week was, we're seeing the growth. We're seeing the development in Fields. And that's what we've been saying since before the season started, that as long as you see that moving forward, this is a successful season. And Justin Fields has had 2 good games back-to-back for the first time, arguably, in his career, where he's done everything he can in his power for the team to win. Obviously, last week Sunday against Dallas, it was a little bit different of a situation, seeing the defense get ran all over like they did. I didn't know that Roquan Smith did not know that Robert Quinn was impacting the team that much. I don't know what happened against Dallas, man. So before we get into the moves that this team has made, let's recap that game a little bit, because there were flashes that the Bears were able to stick it out and make the game look competitive. Obviously, they scored 17 unanswered points there to close the gap. And then Dak Prescott came out and looked like he was Tom Brady or something and just was throwing footballs all over the field. The secondary was suspect at best on Sunday, which is hard for me to see after, the previous weeks. We've really seen both Brisker and Gordon step up big time, and it felt like that was definitely a little bit of a regression game for the defense. What are your thoughts on the way the defense played, and then I guess the game as a whole on Sunday?
I mean, I think you said it pretty well. What we said we wanted to see was really didn't care if they won games. In fact, I'd prefer them to lose games and better that draft pick right now. But we want to see Justin Fields look better, and I think week in and week out, Justin Fields is looking better and better every week. He's not holding the ball as long. He's deciding to run sooner. He's being more effective as a runner. He's getting outside the pocket. They're working on the play action. They're establishing the run to set up the play action.
Right.
We wanted to see Justin Fields look the part, and every week he's looking better and better. We talked about N'Keal Harry coming back. He looked good in a small sample size. Cole Kmet got a touchdown. I mean,
that's wild. Who would have thought? Cole
there's a lot of things to be upset about, but at the same time, when you're playing as many rookies as they are on defense, and so many, when your best players are your first year players, you're going to have games where you just look really bad. I mean, rookies are going to be rookies.
Absolutely.
So,
I touched on it there. Obviously, with these guys being rookies and being such a young core, I would say obviously your secondary is the core of this defense right now at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, you can, unfortunately, you'd like to build from the front back, but unfortunately, it looks like the Bears are building from the back to the front. You look solid at safety with Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker. which, you know, those two speaks volume to Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus and, well, us as a show, because we said we told everybody to relax and let Eddie Jackson go back to his normal spot and let him go take the football away. And here he is leading the NFL in interceptions.
He is leading the league in interceptions.
You know,
I didn't realize that.
Well, I think he's tied for the lead, but
Okay.
still,
Very nice.
four picks in, you know, 8 games. So
much better than where he was last year.
Yeah,
obviously.
You know, so you've got you have your 2 starting safeties moving forward, because that's what everything is about, is next year. Well, you've got your 2 starting safeties in Jackson and Brisker. You've got your starting corners in Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, who, you know, he's looked the part at times as well. It's really all you can look for out of a rookie is for them to look the part at times. You know, have those flashes. You know, he's not a, you know, he wasn't of the Pat Surtain Juniors and the Derek Stingleys, and he wasn't of that tier, but he's played very well.
I would say thus far, overall, the entire body of work, I think he's played better than you would have anticipated him to at the start of the season.
Yeah, you know, I think people
had some moments, but
I think him in the start that him and Brisker had, I think people got unrealistic expectations and thought that they would see that every week, right? Like, it's the same thing with Justin Fields. The first year, you just wanted to see him take those steps. So these 2, you just want to see them take their steps. And I think they're doing that. You know, they've had their moments where, you know, they get lost at times, but, you know, you've got a rookie leading a rookie. So it's going to happen. You know, but you've got your starting corners, you got your starting safeties, you know, then you move up to the linebackers, and obviously there's some question marks there is what that unit's going to look like next year. You know, they did get AJ Klein in the Roquan Smith trade, so it'll be interesting to see if AJ Klein is the starting inside linebacker or if that's going to be Sanborn. So, you know, it's kind of up in the air what that's going to look like. You know, obviously certain guys won't be here next year. They're going to go into, and we'll get into that later, but they're going to go into the offseason with a lot of cap space. They're going to go into the offseason with a lot of draft picks.
The most cap space in football, I do believe.
Yeah. I mean, they're projected to have north of 125 million.
Right.
And that's even with adding Chase Claypool. So, I mean, there's a lot of strides they're taking, and I think every week the big thing, Luke Getsy is getting better and better as a play caller. I think a lot of that comes because the confidence in Justin Fields, not only the confidence that Luke Getsy has in Justin Fields, but he's able to call plays, right? Like they're putting together longer drives where he's able to do certain things to help this team put points on the board. So, you know,
definitely. You know, and that's one thing with calling of the plays. You definitely see Getsy being more willing to take shots on first down. We saw a couple deep balls on first down over the last couple weeks, and that's a nice addition. Obviously, the ability to run the ball with Justin Fields, I believe Getsy kind of sat down with Justin and actually said, okay, these are the plays that Lamar Jackson runs. This is how they kind of scheme it out. What do you like here? And they went through and picked a few plays, obviously modifying for the Chicago Bears offense.
You know, I think that
those base concepts, those fundamentals are definitely important to latch onto from a team that's had so much success at running the football with their quarterback like the Ravens have in Lamar Jackson.
Well, and I think it speaks to volumes to Luke Getsy as not only as an offensive coordinator, but as a coach of players, that he, you know, so many times, and I hate to bash Matt Nagy still this far later, but you know,
I thought we were done with that. You told me I couldn't talk about Matt Nagy.
I think you put it best when you talk about him and you say he was trying to fit a square into a round hole.
Yes, sir.
You know, I just think it really is nice to see Luke Getsy say, okay, look, what we're doing isn't working. Why don't we try this?
What can we do to fix it?
We, you know, what barrier are you facing that's keeping you from running the ball because you do it so well? You know, we don't want to go the Baltimore route where, you know, Fields is running the ball 25 times a game or 20 times a game, but you know, at the same time, I saw a metric today that one of his carries, I don't know if it was his average on his carries or one of his carries, but it was the fastest miles per hour per ball carrier in the NFL for all season. So I mean,
I saw that as well, and you know, again, you kind of alluded to it there, saying playing to your players' strengths, and I did always used to say that Matt Nagy was trying to fit that square peg in the round hole, and
right.
it's almost like Getsy realizes and understands that what he was doing wasn't being in the best interest of Justin Fields. So, what can we do differently? What can we make work?
Well, I think he saw some of the hits that Fields was taking and said, "Look, we don't have an offensive line to protect you right now.
Right.
If you
And if
don't
this is your
see,
franchise guy,
if you get to 3 and you don't have an open progression, get out of there. Don't just
right.
sit there and try to, it's funny because, you watch Justin Fields in the pocket and you talk about pocket presence and poise. That spin move he does in the pocket is freaking nasty. But at the same time, it's so dangerous to turn your back to the field in the
That's
NFL
what I was just going to
because
say. I
guys are
don't
so
like
much
it.
faster and so stronger. So hopefully he starts to kind of use that here and there versus being your go-to move. I think we
Right.
saw
Well, and
Deshaun
guys are
Watson get best at that, where he saves that move for when he absolutely has to, instead of that being his
right.
first move he goes to. So hopefully Justin starts to, go away from turning his back to the field. But I think, like you said, I think Luke Getsy has done a really good job at saying, okay, these are the strengths of this football team. Let's cater this offense to what we do.
Right. Well, and that's what it's all about. Honestly, that's what separates good coaches from great coaches is the ability to adapt and play to the players' specific skill sets that they have in front of them. You see it with Bill Belichick all the time. He's a prime example. As much as I dislike the guy and think he dresses like crazy on the sidelines, you see guys go over there to New England and they would be fourth, fifth string guys on other squads, and he tends to get lightning in a bottle out of them, so to speak.
Or the other way around, where he takes guys like Chad Ochocinco and some of these guys who have been
Ochocinco.
dominant players, and then they go to New England and you see them struggle to get on the field. Where, not to get too far off topic, but you see it kind of speaks even more to a guy like Randy Moss, who was able to go to New England and thrive in that type of offense where you might beat a guy for 5 weeks and then for 2 weeks you might not get a ball because that's just not what the game plan is this week. But at the end of the day, they win football games. They win championships. They do all those things, and that goes into a part of being at this level. You scheme to win every game. So just because the game plan this week is X doesn't mean next week it's not going to be Y.
So going back to Justin Fields and the progress that he's made over the last couple weeks, I've been a little bit more on the Fields train, so to speak, than you have. I know at times you've been critical of him, and for good reason. I don't at all fault you for that. I understand, obviously, from an analytical standpoint, and the previous experience you have in coaching, etc. You see those fundamentals a little bit more, and those little things bother you a little bit more. The things that I don't necessarily, as an analyst or fan, pick up on right away. But overall, as you started the conversation talking about the release getting faster is what's, I think, led to a lot of this success as well, is Justin Fields is recognizing that, hey, I'm holding the ball too long. This is the NFL. I can't hold the ball for 5-6 seconds, especially with the offensive line that we have deployed out there right now. I mean, Alex Leatherwood getting activated off of the unable to participate list. I think that's going to be huge if he has good production, and I mean just average or slightly above average production, that's going to help this offensive line unit. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen the offensive line be able to gel the way we would like to thus far. I mean, they're looking a little bit better. Obviously, we have some injuries right now, which shuffled things up on the offensive
unfortunately,
line.
they've kind of dealt with that all year where, you don't necessarily be able to play the guys you want to play.
Right.
I think you see this team is when you have so many holes to fill. I think it's you cast such a wide net where you bring in guys like a Chase Claypool and Alex Leatherwood, guys who have shown either in the NFL or coming into the NFL what everybody thought was a very talented player. And for whatever reason, they haven't shown that yet. N'Keal Harry, his situation in New England, Leatherwood with the Raiders, Claypool with the Steelers. If they can bring them here and then channel that mentality, that performance, Claypool, his rookie year, man, he was that guy. He would go up and get the ball. He was finding a way to get in the end zone. Leatherwood did have some success early right out of the draft. Harry never really found it, but had that hype. So now you've seen some of it out of Harry in little spurts that he's played so far. But these other guys, if you can find, like you said, even half of what you thought they were going to be, it makes the Bears a better team than they were without them.
Absolutely. And before we get into the specific moves that they've made, I do have to say one thing that I ultimately disagree with there is I think Chase Claypool is not necessarily an unproven talent as much as he's a victim of the team scheme. Somewhat similar.
I would have to agree with you on that. I think there was some specific circumstances in Pittsburgh, a lot like N'Keal Harry in New England. I think they had some circumstances that didn't necessarily go their way. New England, Josh McDaniels he's an interesting personality. He's a guy that maybe sometimes drinks his own Kool-Aid too much.
A lot too much. I'm glad the Bears stayed away from him in their coaching pursuits.
But yeah, I think Chase Claypool, I think, Mike Tomlin's a very no nonsense, no bullshit, get out there, bust your ass, old school kind of coach. And I'll tell you, that's just not the day and age we live in anymore. I am a huge Mike Tomlin fan, so don't get me wrong. I think he's a great coach. I think Pittsburgh falls into the problem the Bears had with Lovie Smith, where Lovie couldn't find the right offensive coordinator. I think maybe Pittsburgh hasn't always had the right people running that offense, and it got disguised a lot with Ben Roethlisberger because he was there and made things work. And as Ben's talent started to go and his body started to give up on him, I think it kind of showed more that they no longer had that type of guy that could get Claypool the ball downfield.
Right. Before we continue, we have a guest joining us, the man of the hour joining us, calling in, so to speak.
What's up, boys?
No. I want to see your face.
But no. I'm driving. It's better this way because then I can keep my phone. I can keep my phone on my passenger seat right now and discuss some Chicago fucking Bears.
So we got our guy.
This is a family fucking show, bro.
Oh, sorry, fuck. My bad.
Jesus.
Come on.
You know what that reminded me of, Turtle? That reminded me of the DX thing on for USA a long time ago.
Triple H and Shawn Michaels when they were talking about the USA Network.
Yeah.
So, Ace, before you called in, we were. I think he's cutting out a little bit.
I thought I was cutting out. Yeah, he's cutting. Did you see? He just comes on, just starts to butt in and just take over.
Right, and then he's cutting out.
He's cutting in and out. He wants to take over. Like what the hell?
Wisconsin cell service, man. I don't know what's going on up there.
Him and Aaron Rodgers are sharing the phone.
All right, man.
Hey, we can hear you now.
Yeah, as I was saying before you joined on the call
and rudely interrupted.
We were kind of talking overall the state of the team and how we feel about the Bears, kind of in parallel to the moves that they've made, but we haven't gotten into.
Oh, he's gone.
He's gone.
He gone. Gas.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, we have not gotten into the reason that we decided we needed to be here live with you tonight, and that is the Bears' moves that they have made in free agency as a whole. Vince, you started to touch on it a little bit, and as I think it's the most exciting move and the most impactful move that the Bears have made, let's talk Chase Claypool. So
Now you just jump right to the end.
that's where I'm starting.
That was the third. That was the third of three moves.
That's fine. We're working in reverse, like the Bears defense.
Yeah, but you can't do that because it was the Roquan move that allowed the Chase Claypool move to happen.
All right, fine. Let's talk the moves that nobody really cares about anymore and go into. So Roquan Smith.
Yo,
I'm sorry. Robert Quinn was the first. Robert Quinn was the first.
Jeez.
So easily forgotten. I know.
God, you're like Mitch Trubisky
for Philly last week. So, but that's beside the point.
I start calling you Mitch Trubisky.
Hey, if you walk up to me and say eight's in, we got problems, my friend.
No, so Robert Quinn,
yes.
Just another little tally for the boys here at Turtle's Take. We said give Robert Quinn a whole offseason prior to last season, and I think you'll get a different Robert Quinn. And sure enough, all he did was go out and set the Bears franchise sack record.
Right.
But I digress. So I think
that's about 10-0 for us.
So I think, Ryan Poles, I think he's, every time somebody wants to doubt him, I think he's really gone above and beyond and shown that he is the right man for the job. A lot of people were screaming, should have dealt Robert Quinn in the offseason, should have done this, should have done that. All he did was hold on to Quinn until the 7-0 Philadelphia Eagles had an injury and needed a pass rush and was able to go out and make a move to get, I believe he got a 4th round pick for Robert Quinn.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so you get a 4th round pick for a guy that you really were trying to move the contract, and they take his contract going forward, and you get a 4th round pick plus more cap space. Then that leads into the awful display of Roquan Smith bawling his eyes out at the press conference, finding out that he got traded. I didn't quite understand. He was crying
because he knew he was next, right?
I honestly think that was just a show. I think it was just I don't even know what that was for. I mean, we've seen guys play together for 10 years and not react that way. Let alone
right. It's not like he was like deceased. He just was going to another team.
What, 2 years together? 3 years?
Right,
together,
and he's got potential to win a Super Bowl on the Eagles. He's doing absolutely nothing on that Chicago Bears team.
Right, and
for a guy that you consider a friend in that regard, but
especially everybody knew that was going to happen, right? Like if you had to make Ryan Poles, if you had to give him truth serum, I think he would tell you, there was 100% chance that Robert Quinn was getting dealt before the deadline.
Oh, right. I don't know. I don't know. I kind of joined the show a little bit later, but just like Roquan Smith, right? I was listening to ESPN 1000 today, and so many people were calling in mad that he was traded. They're like, I can't believe they traded. Why can't you believe that? Like guy was holding out for so much, and the Bears were willing to offer. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna not play ball with them,
ultimately, if you're not going to play ball with the Bears at some point, that comes into the decision-making process, I think is ultimately what Ace was trying to allude to.
I think
Ryan Poles said it today. He came out transparent as could be, something that we never saw with the previous regime, and said, these are the moves we made. This is why we made them. And he said, when he was asked those tough questions, he sat there like a man, took it, and said, obviously, him not having an agent is difficult. It's a more sensitive situation. We did not feel that we were able to come to terms. We felt that we were very far apart on a deal. So we made the decision to move Roquan and capitalize on our investment rather than wait until the offseason and risk that he just walks and you get nothing.
So I had quite a bit of backlash from Bears fans on my Facebook, on Twitter, Selfless plug. I need more followers, so go follow at Turtle's Take. But anyway, on Twitter, people that I know, I got a lot of text messages, and one of my good friends, Anthony, texted me, and he was like, "Man, I can't believe they did that," and he had that like diehard Bear part of him, like, man, they just got rid of one of our best players. And I said, but look at it this way: he doesn't want to be here. And Anthony's concern was, what is it telling the rest of the league for the impending free agents you're going to try to go get? What does it tell them by you get rid of? So I said, well, look, you've got a guy that doesn't want to be here. You've got a guy that has been very, very hard to communicate with, to negotiate with. He already has a number in his mind that he feels he deserves. And let's just say he's playing up to that number right now.
Which he wasn't.
Well, but even if he was, he's leading the NFL in tackles. Okay, but what is that doing for your team? It's not doing anything. You're still losing games. You're still having the ball run down your throat. You're still having teams do what they want. We've seen Derek Carr and now, Kirk Cousins. Henry. We saw Kirk Cousins and now, who did they just play? Dak Prescott. Both start games around 15 for 15. So you've had teams do whatever they want to this Bears defense. So him playing at that level isn't doing anything for your team. He doesn't want to be here. Right. He wants more money than you're willing to spend. So you're not doing yourselves any favor by keeping him and either losing him for nothing in the offseason or franchising him and having him hold out again. He made it
sign his rookie deal without holding.
Well, that's what I say. He made it get to this point. He held out his rookie contract. He held out this contract. He negotiated without an agent. He had somebody who's not an NFL agent calling teams looking for a trade before the Bears even said that they were willing to look for a trade. And let's be really honest. I'm sure there were other teams that were willing to give up what Baltimore gave up for Roquan Smith. The fact that they sent him to a team that's a very, very good fit for him, I feel that Ryan Poles was just, he was doing what he could to save that relationship for whatever the reason.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You never know.
And Ryan Poles from the get, he showed, when it goes back to not finding Roquan for not being at practice, he could have done all those things and he didn't do that. He negotiated on good terms the entire time. Right. And when you reach a point that you feel you cannot make a deal with that person, it's time to move them and get what you can. And whether they kept that second round pick and they added it to their draft capital and made that pick, or they wound up doing what they did and taking their second round pick now and moving it to Pittsburgh to go in and bring in a guy like Chase Claypool, 24 years old, 6'4", 230, big, fast kid that is has a record of making big touchdown, go fight for the ball at its highest point against the defender. And he's done that in the NFL. So you bring him here, you put him on a team that needs that type of player more than anything. I just don't see where there's anything negative about what's happened here in the last few days.
And so I agree 100% with you, Turtle. I was looking on Twitter and everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe we gave up a second round, blah, blah, blah. Like, us as Bears fans, like, we have to decide when we want to be happy. You know what I mean? Right. Like, you can't, if the Bears didn't do anything, let's say they just traded all these guys away and didn't pick anybody up, the whole fan base would have been like, I can't believe it.
Right.
I can't believe they did that. Right. Now you're getting a wide receiver 2 that is going to take.
He could build into a wide receiver 1.
Right. And now he's going to take pressure off of Darnell Mooney. Mm-hmm. He's going to give Justin Fields a big body, especially in the red zone where that team has struggled hard to score points. And Justin Fields' running ability itself is going to allow the receivers to get open. We've already seen it a little bit the last 2 weeks. When he's running, defenses have to account for him. And Mooney has been so much more active the last 2 weeks. Even Komet's been active. You know what I mean? Now you're throwing Claypool into the mix. And the only thing that I can see is more points. And that's what this NFL is now. You need to score.
Well, and, he's not one of those big body receivers. It's a stick in the mud. Like, the dude's got top end speed, but he's 6'4", 230. So, you take what the Bears need. And if you said, okay, you can next year on this team, you can either lose Roquan for nothing, or you can get rid of him now and you can bring in Chase Claypool. I think that's a no-brainer.
Right.
I've heard a lot of fans, and again, I think Ace hit it perfect. As Bear fans, man, you get a lot of people, they just want to be unhappy because it's the Bears.
Right.
That this is a new regime. I think Tarbill said it best. We've seen a lot out of this regime from Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus, as well as Luke Getsy, that we haven't seen in years past with this Bears organization. If nothing else, Ryan Poles is, in my mind, has been done enough to earn the benefit of the doubt.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So you know how no general manager is ever going to hit 100% of the time, right?
Right.
What percentage so far for the first year would you give him on 100% being great and 0 being awful? Like, where would you put his percentage of hits so far this year?
Here's the thing. Let's go by them one by one. The first pick was what? Gordon?
Yep.
Or was that Brisker? Gordon was
Gordon, I think.
was 1, right?
Yep.
So I think Gordon is a hit. I think it's still too early to tell for sure, but he's trending that direction.
Right.
I think Brisker is a no doubt. I think he has shown that he is exactly who they thought he was.
Yep.
He's that downhill physical presence that they needed to be able to move Eddie Jackson back to free safety. I think Velas Jones, I think at this point, I think he's trending more towards just one of those fast, athletic dudes that maybe doesn't ever become anything more than that.
I feel like he's more of like a Cordell Patterson type.
Yeah, I think
a gadget guy, not a specialist.
Right, he's probably more likely to be an average player that has some speed and athleticism to him, more than a difference maker.
They could teach him how to catch punt returns. That would be great.
But I mean, those were the main 3 picks, right? So when you judge Ryan Poles, those are 3 you're going to judge it by so far. So if you say, well, you have 2, well, you have 1 probably is a good chance it's a home run, and then 1 that is trending that direction, and then 1 that's trending the opposite direction. Right. At least if you hit on your first and second picks, it's your third that didn't quite pan out. There's Hall of Fame GMs that their 3rd round picks didn't pan out.
Right. And now let's go back and think, right? Those were 2 second round picks, right? The Bears didn't have a first round this year. So you're getting a caliber of player in those 2 second round picks, arguably, now looking at how they're playing, could have potentially been first round talents. You know what I mean? These guys are coming in day 1 and they're making a difference on that defense.
Let's not forget the left tackle.
I don't remember his name.
Braxton Jones.
Braxton Jones, yeah.
That was what, a 5th round pick?
Right.
Yes.
And I would say at this point he's a hit, right? He's still got to develop, but for a 5th round pick lineman, you're getting a guy who's a starter.
Right. To get a starting tackle.
They drafted Charles Leno in the 1st round, or in the 7th round, and they had him as a starter for years. So, slow boat Leno, I ain't never gonna let go of that guy.
So if you look at
now, I'm not gonna lie, boys. I might lose you, but I'll jump back on.
That's fine, no worries.
So when you look at Ryan Poles' body of work so far, he in 1 season gutted the Bears, right? Like, before you could rebuild, you have to hit rock bottom. And I think he sped that up. He expedited hitting rock bottom so they could start that climb back to relevance. And he did that in 1 season. And then he followed it up by, not even a full season. We're 8 weeks in? So you're 8 weeks in, he's hit rock bottom, and now we've started to climb up. It was weird. Like, so we're going to say that yesterday was rock bottom because you traded Roquan Smith yesterday. You hit rock bottom.
Right.
Today you started that ascend by trading for what could be a dominant number 1 receiver.
Exactly. And that's
so, to have that day by day it's not even like he said, okay, well, at the end of the season, we're going to make these moves. He said, no, we've added Chase Claypool, Alex Leatherwood, Riley Reef, guys that, if need be, can be plugged in right now and play. But
Lucas
we've
Patrick.
also added Braxton Jones, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, the kid from Kansas City, Pringle, Inequity St. Brown, Dante Pettis. Like, we've added and added and added. You gutted this team and said, look, we're willing to take on that $4 point whatever $1 million it was for Roquan the rest of the year to get that second round pick. Everybody said, well, that's stupid. Just take the third round pick. Well, he said, I want that second. And look what he did with it. He then was able to move it for Chase Claypool. So you bring in a receiver like Chase Claypool. That's all you're doing is helping Justin Fields, like right now, become a better player. And that's what this is all about. It's all about, this season was all about Justin Fields becoming the guy. And how everybody said, well, you started this year with what everybody said was the worst receiving core in football. Well, now you look at a receiving core that has Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, and N'Keal Harry. That's a pretty good receiving core. That's three true weapons, also having Cole Kmet, who now could just be a tight end, doesn't have to play wide receiver, doesn't have to do all the other stuff.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think, obviously, Chase Claypool and Cole Kmet have a relationship from their days at Notre Dame together, and I think maybe that helps bring some upside out of Cole Kmet. Maybe he's, naturally more competitive, obviously different position, but just the friendly competition between two guys that, ascended through college together might help benefit Cole Kmet in the long run. And again, schematically, now you have another guy you have to respect on offense.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what it boils down to. So you've got Chase Claypool out here now. Obviously, your 1, 2, and 3 are probably Claypool, Mooney, and Harry at this point.
Well, and you look at it where a lot of teams, especially rookie quarterbacks, where they struggle most, the red zone. So now you take Justin, who is a elite threat running the football.
Right.
You give him 6'4" Chase Claypool, 6'2" or 6'3", whatever he is, N'Keal Harry.
I think N'Keal Harry's 6'3". I think
something
he's 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, you get Cole Kmet. And then you get the shifty Darnell Mooney, who plays bigger than he is.
And Equanimeous St. Brown. Throw him into that mix because
but I'm just saying,
played above his level, and he's another big-bodied guy that's, he's a little on the lankier side, but he's 6'3", 6'4".
But you get that size going to the red zone, and then you get a guy like Justin Fields who can get on the edge and make things happen running the football. You look at, you just went through Claypool, Mooney, Harry, St. Brown, Kmet. You look at Justin Fields running the football as well as throwing it. David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert running the football. Like this offense, you now have guys that defenses have to game plan to stop now. Before it was, you started this year with Pringle and Mooney and St. Brown and Pettis, and you really didn't know what else. You had a Justin Fields who didn't look like he knew how to play quarterback all the time. Now, fast forward just 8 weeks later, and you've got an offense who is really the best offense on paper that you've had in a long time. Not to mention, you've got a quarterback, what everybody wants to be your franchise quarterback, playing the part. He now looks like a franchise quarterback. He looks like somebody who's getting better every single snap, every single play, every single game. In a loss, that game against Dallas, other than that stretch where they put up those 17 and made it a close game before getting blown. Anyways, in a blowout loss, all you heard from mainstream media was Justin Fields shines in Bears loss. Justin Fields takes those next steps in a Bears loss. That's what this season was all about. The team was built for a high draft pick, but they wanted Justin Fields to take those steps, and he's doing that every week.
Right, and I know I heard you guys talk about it a little earlier about the crop of wide receivers. Next year's free agent class is awful. Right, it's garbage, awful. And for polls to be like, okay, hey, we're still going to have draft picks because they still have that second round pick. It's just pushed back a little bit.
Right.
But for him to
Right.
be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go out and get a weapon. We have 9 weeks left in the season. Let's give this kid some pieces that we can build chemistry with this season to carry into next season.
Well, and as it's kind of been alluded to, that's situational. I don't want to say situational football, but Luke Getsy's almost playing situational football and recognizing the changes he needs to make on the field. And Ryan Poles adapted to the situation, right? He saw that this draft class upcoming is weak at wide receiver. He saw a guy in Chase Claypool that he liked, that he think can make an instant impact for Justin Fields. So it's a no-brainer. Who are you going to draft in the second round that's going to be equal to or better than Chase Claypool at this point?
Right. And
the draft pool is very thin. So,
you know, the thing I like about it, and I know a lot of people think, well, I would have just taken the draft pick, draft a wide receiver, blah, blah, blah. This draft has 3 wide receivers that are head and shoulders above the rest in this draft class. You're not in a position to draft one of them with your first draft pick. You have way other bigger holes that need to be filled.
They have to go offensive line in the first round of the draft.
Well, a lot of it's going to depend on free agency, right?
Yep.
Like who becomes available, who can they go and get in free agency that then they don't have to get in the draft. Can you minimize what you have to get? You know, you hope Tevin Jenkins is going to be a starter next year. You hope either Larry Borum or Braxton Jones, one of them is going to be a starter next year. You know, whether Cody Whitehair is still here or he's replaced, however it plays out, it plays out. But you minimize what you have to find in the draft because it's not like you're going to go draft guys and they're instantly day one going to be ready to compete. You know, so you go get a receiver now who, yeah, he's got his flaws, but he's polished. He's an NFL receiver. You don't look at him and go, oh, he still has to learn the game. The game has already slowed down for Chase Claypool. The game is now starting to slow down for Justin Fields. Don't double down and go say, well, I'm going to hold on to this draft pick and go draft a receiver who now has to learn the game as well. Justin's not at that point of his career where he's ready to teach guys how to be football players. He's not ready to go say, okay, well, you're running your route wrong because you have to do this. He's still learning his position. So go get a guy who knows what he's doing. You now have 3 receivers in N'Keal Harry, Chase Claypool, and Darnell Mooney that Justin doesn't have to go coach. They're good enough to go play, and the Bears wide receiver coach, Luke Getsy, they can worry about what those 3 aren't doing they should be doing because they know the position. They know how to play.
Let me ask you this. When we alluded to David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert being, I would say, fundamental pieces of this offense thus far, do you think that there's a chance that David Montgomery is on this team next year?
A chance that he's on the team? There's definitely a chance he's on the team.
Do you think?
But there's also a chance
he's not. Let me rephrase that. Do you think that David Montgomery is moved before the start of next season?
When is his contract up? Is it up after this year or is it up?
I believe it is up after this year, yes.
So, you know, now it comes down to
a little bit of fundamentals, right? Because
and what you could get him for. If you can get him for market value, maybe a little less than market value for a starting running back, well, yeah, because you got Khalil Herbert on his rookie deal. But if David Montgomery and his agent say, okay, well, we want number 1 tier running back money, well, then you have to fall back and go to, okay, we'll start Khalil Herbert and we'll use that money somewhere else.
Well, and that's kind of my thought process as well. I think that David Montgomery is an outstanding back, and I think the combination of Montgomery and Herbert is as good at a combo as any other combo in the league. I mean,
because
Dillon and Jones
do different things.
Right. You look at Dillon and Jones, you look at Hubbard and Kareem Hunt.
Right.
All these teams that have 1-2 punches, so to speak, nowadays. And I think David Montgomery is a good piece to that, but I also feel like Khalil Herbert could definitely be your starting back. And maybe a guy like Ebner pans out as a situational
I think Khalil
backup or
Herbert fits this offense better. He's
yes,
he's faster to get north south.
right.
Whereas Montgomery is one of those, let me get the ball, let me string them outside, cut back, cut, make a few guys miss, and now I go get a few more yards. And I made a 5-yard run turn into a 20-yard run. Whereas Khalil Herbert
Herbert's
is,
more of a
let me get
one
the ball
cut.
and let me get my ass to the end zone.
Yeah, let me put my head down, plow through the
Right.
hole, and make
And
my
and
one cut.
and I say that just based off who they are. I'm a big fan of David Montgomery. I think he's a very good running back. I feel like he definitely can start in this league and be a top tier running back.
Oh, absolutely.
I just
No
don't
disrespect to him.
know. I just don't know that it's like as a primary, I'm the only guy. And if it comes down to, well, I want top tier money, I don't know that he's going to get it. There was a report this morning that the Bears and Rams had very briefly discussed Cam Akers and a draft pick for David Montgomery.
I
Whether
would have
maybe
actually been okay with that. I
and,
want to know your
maybe
thoughts on
that's
that.
maybe that's looked at further in the offseason.
Possibly.
Maybe that's something that's done then.
Would you have been okay with that move today?
Yeah, I mean, I like David Montgomery, but I like Cam Akers. I think Cam Akers is a lot like Khalil Herbert. So I think, he fits the offense a little better. It all depends. Cleveland's looking to move
Right.
Kareem Hunt, and they're only looking for a 4th round pick. So it all depends.
I'd take Kareem Hunt yesterday
on what
for a
an
4th round pick.
organization values for the running back.
So
would I create a hole just to create a hole? No, because if you could get David Montgomery for a good price, you have so much money that I would keep him around unless it's he wants top tier money.
So here's the thing that always it comes down to philosophy was what I was trying to allude to, and you look at a guy like David Montgomery, solid running back, definitely deserves, I would say, to be a starter in this league. Tremendous player, great personality, a leader of men, always plays hard. Even last year when the Bears were getting the shit kicked out of them at times and they weren't fighting like they are this year, even in the losses. You look at a guy like David Montgomery and say he's everything you want in a player, but how much do you value that player? And in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of other analysts around the league, you don't pay running backs top tier money because they are plug and play. They are more. Running back is one of the easiest positions to draft, in my opinion. And even if it's a temporary fix, even if you only get 3 to 4 solid years out of a guy, in 3 to 4 years, you should be able to go out and draft another guy that's that guy for 3 to 5 seasons. I mean, the lifespan of running backs in the NFL is so dynamic nowadays. You look at Todd Gurley, just retired the other day at 27. He was an all-pro, led the league in rushing 2 seasons, and I don't want to say he's washed by 27, but nobody was making calls. And it's just one of those things where the position's so dynamic that you ultimately, in my opinion, just as you don't pay middle linebackers top tier money, because in my opinion, that's a plug and play position. Also, you don't give it to running backs. So it's going to be completely decisive. In my opinion, as you started to get to there, you were saying that it's going to depend on the amount of money that David Montgomery believes David Montgomery is worth. I think that's hit the nail on the head 100%. And I don't see Ryan Poles stepping up and matching, an above average offer to keep David Montgomery around.
Right. No, I definitely agree. I think he, like I say, he's a very good running back, but you've got Khalil Herbert on a rookie deal, fits the offense a little better, does a little more. It seems, is very dynamic.
Right.
So it's one of those where, you got lucky that you have both. And as we go through this process, you see Buffalo thought they stole the draft by drafting James Cook. I forget what round they took him in, but later than everybody thought he would go. And here we are 8-9 weeks into the season, and we're at the deadline, and they're trading for Naheem Hines because Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, James Cook, none of them seem to be able to win that job. So they go out and they get a guy like Naheem Hines, who at the end of the day is a very average running back. But they went out to get him because they feel the need. It's all about the need in the NFL. Minnesota feels like they're in a position where they can win the division this year because Green Bay's not very good. The Bears aren't ready to win and are making their team worse. And Irv Smith goes down for 8 to 10 weeks. So what do? They convince the stupid ass Detroit Lions to trade them their Pro Bowl tight end.
I don't understand that
for absolutely nothing. They got like a 5th round pick and gave up a 6th round pick. So you got seriously. Let me find the trade. I couldn't believe it when I read it. Hold on. Let me look it up.
Right? That's who you're talking about. That's wild to me because he was top 5 in fantasy points last season. I mean,
the dude is a absolute stud,
absolute animal. While you're looking that up, we got a comment from our guy Angelo here in the chat. I want to know your thoughts on the offensive line. I'm going to break this down real quick from my perspective, and then you can chime in, Vince.
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately the offensive line has shown flashes at times so far this season. The biggest issue is the cohesion, the working together. I'm trying to think of
collusion
I'm trying to think of synonyms for collaboration.
Collaboration, that's it.
Because I don't want to be alluding anything to the previous regime. But
this trade sucks for Detroit.
Okay. Let me finish going through this quick though. Honestly, I think this offensive line unit can be successful. I still believe in both Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum that they will be tried and true starters. They're just not quite there yet. Borum obviously trending upwards a little bit better than Jenkins has thus far. Braxton Jones, the jury's still out on him for me. I think that he could be a good player, but I think he needs more time to develop. Obviously, being a 5th round pick, you have concerns clearly there. At times, he's looked very bad, to be blatant, during the pass rush, but he's a pretty good run blocker thus far. Lucas Patrick, when he comes back healthy, I think him at center makes this team better. I think that Sam Mustipher, I've said it time and time again, leader of men, great dude, a guy you'd want to have a beer with or go to church on Sunday with, not a guy that you want blocking your franchise quarterback, in my opinion. He just doesn't have top caliber talent. He's, a very respectable, very well-liked guy in the locker room, and that's fine. Maybe he's a rotational piece moving forward, but I think you have to get away from him. And Lucas Patrick, coming off the toe injury, when he does come back, will help significantly there. And then you've got some options, right? You've got guys like Schofield that you can throw in there, Riley Reef that can be a rotational piece. Overall, I think this line is, before I say this, let's go back to the one player that I missed on that line in Cody Whitehair. Obviously, Cody Whitehair, when healthy, I would say one of the best guards in the business. I mean, he's definitely top 15 probably at that position when healthy, playing tried and true where he in the situational football that he plays best. Cody Whitehair is a damn good player. So I think that overall this offensive line is in a much better position than they were last year. However, I think there's still some work to be done. The jury's still out on a couple guys, and only time will really tell. I do hope that Alex Leatherwood pans out and that he trends up and is at least a good rotational piece. The guy's a former first-round pick, so you would like to think that at some point he has the ability to develop back into the guy that he was in college because, man, he was a phenomenal offensive lineman in college. I don't think anyone disputes that. It's just he struggled in the latter portion of the season with Las Vegas, and they weren't willing to wait it out. So hopefully he becomes a good piece for this team. But overall, man, I feel much better about the offensive line than I did at this time last year. And I feel better about the situation that we're going into in the offseason because I truly believe that our general manager will make the correct calls in both the draft and free agency to better this team as a whole and to address that offensive line and any holes that we have. I mean, Ryan Poles was a lineman himself, correct? When he played football, he was.
Well, and I think the big thing is, not to cut you off, but I think the big thing is, a lot of people were like, well, why would you fix the secondary before you fix the offensive line, the defensive line, the linebackers, blah, 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 blah. Either way, this year we were having to fix something. So I think he fixed what he could at the time. Right. He made great wholesale changes. I agree with you that, I think you feel better about the offensive line moving forward than at this point right now than you did at the end of last season or even going into this season.
Definitely.
But at the end of the day, it's to be determined, right? Like if they keep progressing, then you feel really good about it. If they all take a step backwards, then we're screwed. But
then it's back to the drawing board, and you have $125 million.
Exactly. The big saving grace is you have the money. You now have the money and the draft capital to be players in the draft as well as free agency. If there's a guy that falls a couple spots that you really, really like, you package a couple picks together and you move up and you go get that guy. If there's a guy that's in free agency that you really like, you spend the money to go get him. Maybe there's a tackle and a guard, and because you're able to get one of them in free agency, you only have to get the other in the draft rather than both.
Well, and there's some big name offensive linemen coming up in free agency this coming season.
There definitely is.
I'm not that you've forgotten that point, but just our viewers in general, don't forget that this upcoming free agency period, off-season period, is going to field some opportunities to get some, I would say, top-tier linemen, whereas that position's usually more elusive and it's harder to nail down those good named guys because the guys that are good teams want to keep so they don't have to replace them.
Mm-hmm.
It's trending much more towards the offensive line availability being in the Bears' favor in free agency. So then if you get a guy in free agency, maybe in the first round, you can go out and address another need like edge or linebacker. I don't know. This offense is scoring 30 points a game the last 2 weeks. So if the offense does that consistently, I don't want to say 30 points consistently.
No, but if the offense is able to move the ball and score points, then it takes the pressure off of some of the other areas.
Exactly. So then you can attack rebuilding the defense a little bit quicker. And a lot of the guys that we've moved on from, Akeem Hicks for one, his production, not great. Then he gets hurt.
Leonard Floyd just finally got his first sack of the season.
Leonard Floyd looked.
Yo, can I tell you this janky-ass trade now?
Yes. Sorry. Go back to this Hawkinson trade. Let me get it.
It's driving me crazy.
Go ahead.
So the Vikings sent a 2023 second-round pick.
Okay.
A 2024 fourth-round pick to Detroit.
That's it.
For TJ Hawkinson, a 2023 fourth-round pick, and a 2024 fourth-round pick.
What world does that make sense in?
So you gave up Hawkinson, you gave up a fourth round in each of the next two drafts, and all you got back was a second this year and a fourth next year.
I don't understand that at all unless there's a guy that they're really adamant about getting at the tight end position out of this next draft class, and even then, that's a total Detroit Lions move, right? That's a boneheaded move. Like I always allude back to, they had Megatron. They had one of the best receivers in the NFL, one of the best receivers of all time on their team, and the guy left because they wouldn't get him any help around him.
Right.
Like this Detroit
Barry
Lions
Sanders
team,
did the same thing. Barry Sanders retired early because he didn't want to be a Lion anymore.
Right. Like this team has consistently shot themselves in the foot when they've had all-star talent. And I would say Hawkinson was trending towards being an
Hawkinson
all-star
is a
tight end.
game changer. He's a Pro Bowl tight end. He's top 5 at his position in the entire league, a difference maker, a guy that you have to scheme to stop, and you gave him up basically to upgrade from a 4th to a 2nd. And
I mean, kudos to whoever worked that deal in Minnesota, because that guy's getting a raise after tonight or something.
Right.
But my God, I mean,
and then not to mention to do that to your division rival, like you gave him to you have to face him twice a year now.
You got to play this guy twice a year, and he's going to have 100 yards per game on you, probably. Like,
I could not believe it.
I don't understand that, but man, to wrap things up here, back to our Chicago Bears.
Yeah,
the trend is looking good for me as a Chicago Bears fan. I feel much better than I did about the Bears even 4 weeks ago. I don't even want to say 8 weeks. 4 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, you were sitting here questioning whether Justin Fields was the guy, for better or worse. I mean,
no, absolutely. Absolutely. I was very, at best case, I was very much on the fence.
Yes.
Now
I
fast forward to today, I feel like Justin Fields has played the back-to-back, the best 2 games of his career. Yes. Luke Getsy's called the best 2 games I've seen him call.
Absolutely.
They've added a bona fide playmaker in Chase Claypool.
Right.
You've got N'Keal Harry back from IR,
which is big.
And Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery have established themselves as one of the best 1-2 punches in the backfield in all of football.
And I think what I wanted to display out of that is, as you said, Justin Fields is trending towards being the guy, right? At this point, if he continues to improve and plays at the level he's played the last 2 weeks or better, hopefully, obviously better the rest of the season. We want to see that continued growth.
You confidently can say that you feel like he's raised the floor. His floor is now higher than it was before. You feel, you're instead of seeing flashes, you're seeing more consistent high level play out of him. And that's really all we wanted to see all year. Was at the end of the year we wanted to say, okay, well, his play is more often the high level than the flash here and there. Like now you see that on a regular basis. You can see the game starting to slow down for him. You can see him progressing and evolving as a quarterback in front of us. And now you safely feel like, okay, we got the guy. We got the guy we need.
Right. And with that being said, I mean, what more can you expect out of a guy that's got sub-level talent around him?
Right.
I mean, this offense, I'm super ecstatic that they grabbed Chase Claypool today.
Yeah.
I think it was absolutely 110% the right move. All it does is make our quarterback and this team better in the future. Even
in the short term and the long term.
Yeah. He's a guy that's on a 1.5-year deal. So you have him for this season and for sure next season, right? Because 1.5-year deal, you've got the remainder of this year, you've got all of next year. And then really the following season, if you want to franchise tag him, if he performs well and you can't come
I'm not sure, but I believe that after this season, don't quote me on this, but I think they have the option to pick up his 5th-year rookie option.
You're right. So that takes care of another year.
I think I'm not positive.
No, you are 100% right. I did read that. This afternoon. But with that being said, you've got a guy that now maybe you've got for at least at minimum 1.5 seasons.
Right.
At maximum 2.5 seasons if you can't get him to come to terms and re-sign, and you look at a tag situation or something like that to get him to stay and play. But either way, in the short term, you've made the team better. If he performs and outperforms what your expectation for him is, which is to be a solid number 2 option in this team, then it's a no-brainer. You have a guy that you pay and you retain him, and it was a win-win. There's really nothing that the Bears have lost here. Sure, they lost the 2nd-round pick, but that 2nd-round pick wasn't guaranteed to hit and be the next.
I would say that they see Chase Claypool as a number 1, not a number 2. I feel like they're going to bring him here, and at the very least, him and Mooney will be 1A, 1B.
Well, and he's got the size to be a 1, right?
Well,
he's
because you gave up you gave up the second round pick, right? Like we saw Arizona did the same thing. They gave up DeAndre Hopkins for a second round. So obviously a different situation. He's a little older. Claypool's only 24, but they went out. They aggressively went out to get Chase Claypool. I think they see him as a guy who can be a number 1 here.
Well, and I like what you said there more as 1A, 1B, right? You obviously have a guy that's going to take pressure and attention away from Darnell Mooney, which is what we've seen happen a little bit just with N'Keal Harry coming out.
Well, and I think
on the field.
It makes the Bears a little more versatile. You now put Claypool and N'Keal Harry on the outside, and you slide Darnell Mooney back to the slot, and you let him be that dangerous slot receiver like he was his rookie year.
Yeah, and then hopefully he has 1,200 yards in the season, and everybody's fat, dumb, and happy. Andrew's fantasy team looks good because he can put Darnell Mooney in, because I'm a homer, and I always take one guy at the very end of the draft that I shouldn't. Hey,
I like it.
I'll tell you this. I started Justin Fields over Aaron Rodgers in a fantasy league last week. And I'm happy I did it because Justin Fields had
much better game.
Points, my guy.
Right. But yeah,
no,
so I think in closing, I think we're, I know a lot of Bears fans are just used to waiting for that other shoe to drop and it to hit us right in the face. But I think this is a new regime. I think they're making very solid moves, and they're moves to, like we said, to help us in the short term as well as make us a better football team in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about, is building. I don't want to say a dynasty, because we're definitely not going in that direction yet. But we're taking the steps to build sustained long-term success that's going to be, more than just 1 or 2 seasons. And that's what it's about. Because I'm tired of hearing we're going to rebuild this team every 5 years. And right now I feel pretty darn good. Our guy Ace in the chat saying he got Claypool in fantasy. Well, that might be the sleeper pick of the year. Who knows? But with that being said, guys, as always, we appreciate you joining us. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Undefeated Sports Network. To my guy Turtle on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter. I need followers.
Give him some followers because he's posting some good content up there, but we got to get it to reach the broader audience. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Follow us on Facebook at the Undefeated Sports Network.
Maybe I'll do like a Chase Claypool jersey giveaway.
Yeah, we'll get something worked up there for sure. I know I'm going to be buying a Claypool jersey, and I know my wife's watching, so she probably just heard me say that. But with that being said, guys, as always, we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. We will see you again next week. Hope you guys have a good night, and we will see you soon.